Hi. Well, it's been about 3 weeks since I last made a vlog, and I didn't intend to go this long without recording something. Um, Mimi and I drove to Toronto to visit family, and on the way there, we had some car trouble. The front left tire, the studs were popping off on my car, and so uh, I basically there was like this noise in the front of the car and it was getting worse, and my car jerked at one point. We pulled over and I noticed one of the bolts was missing, but I'm so absent-minded. I'm like, did was that always missing? Has the wheel always been like that? I have no idea. I don't remember, but I'm gonna make a mental note of it right now that there's a bolt missing on this wheel. And we got back on the road and kept driving, and after couldn't have been another hour really on the road, and the car jolted again. And instead of pulling over in a rest area, I just pulled over on the side of the road, turned my hazard lights on, and got out and looked at the wheel, and another bolt was missing. uh, and and that's when I was like, okay, this is serious. Something is bad is happening to the wheel of this car. So it's like the interstate too in Michigan, where the speed limit is 70, so everyone's going 80. So I kept my hazard lights on and I drove at like 30 miles an hour to get to the first exit, which was like half a mile away. And we stopped at this gas station, and it was a Sunday. We're driving on a Sunday. So I'm thinking in my head, nothing's going to be open. We're going to be stranded in the middle of nowhere. And I'm looking up auto repair centers on my phone just to see if I can find one that's open on a Sunday. And of course, none of them are. And I go into the gas station and I ask the woman behind the counter if she knows uh, if anyone is open or if there's anywhere I can go. And she says, yeah, actually, there's a tire service center and it's a 10-minute drive away. And I'm thinking, okay, that's going to be a 20-minute drive the way I have to drive. And I'm looking on Google Maps, and I could get on the highway and just go down one exit. And I'm like, I don't want to go on the highway because I don't want to drive fast. So I get onto a county road, and the speed limit there I think is 55, and I'm not going faster than 30 with my hazards on. And it sounds like the tire is getting worse. And it feels like the car is wobbling. And I'm like, I'm not going to drive this any further. I pull over, I take a look at the wheel, and like two of the bolts that were still there are totally loose. They're completely loose. And basically the wheel was only being held by a single bolt. So I called for a tow truck, and I had a tow truck take me to the service center. And the first thing the guy at the service center says was, I won't have a mechanic on until Tuesday morning. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to have to get a hotel room. I'm going to have to get a taxi. Everybody that I talked to in this process, the tow truck driver, the guy at the auto center, and then uh, the woman at the gas station, they all said that I would be able to use Uber. Um, Sorry, I just had a timer come up on my phone. They all said I would be able to use Uber. I was in Bay City, Michigan. Uber didn't work. I was sitting on the Uber app for 10 minutes and not a single driver came up. And I tried Lyft and no drivers came up. Granted, it was afternoon on a Sunday, but you can't really use Uber or Lyft in Bay City, Michigan, uh, in an emergency. So I started calling cab companies, and it had to have been some guy who just like threw like a magnetic cab sign on the side of his car, and like, you know, his cab company number goes to his cell phone, because I could hear a game, like a football game being played in the background. Like he was clearly watching TV, and like, oh yeah, I'll be right there. He showed up in like 15 minutes and he took us to the hotel. And we were there for 2 nights. Monday morning, I started calling mechanics and just asking them, like, "Hey, can you see me today?" And almost every single one of them said, "No, I'm understaffed, and the earliest I could look at it would be Friday or next week or 2 weeks from now." One guy that I called said, I have no idea when I can take a look at it because literally every parking space in my lot has a car that needs to be worked on in it. You wouldn't, if you were to drive here, you would not be able to park." I was like, "Oh, okay." And what was great though was that every mechanic that I called, they referred me to another mechanic. So I was just going down a list of mechanics that had been referred by previous mechanics. And eventually I landed on this one. I talked to the guy and he said I could look at it today. If I can't get to it today, I'll get to it tomorrow morning. And I was like, "You're the guy." So I called the tow truck company back and had brought my car over, and they had it fixed by the end of the day. I'd already paid for the hotel a second night, so we just relaxed there and stayed there. And Bay City, Michigan is a fine place to be stranded in. There were plenty of places to eat. There wasn't a lot to do, but we also didn't have access to a car, so um, the the next morning, which was Tuesday, we drove the rest of the way to Toronto, which I think was like 5 or 6 hour drive, and then we just spent the rest of the week with the family and saw them as much as we could. And the next Sunday, I drove back, and Mimi stayed there. Like we're always, whenever we visit, we're always in a rush to see everybody. And I was kind of in a rush to get back, but I thought, like there's not really any reason for you to come back, so you can just take your time and see everybody that you want to see in the time that you want to see them, and then I'll drive back up in like 2 or 3 weeks and pick you up. So that's what we did. Um, and that was 2 weeks ago. Yeah, that was 2 weeks ago. So a lot of other stuff has happened since then, but I don't ever want one of these vlogs to go longer than 10 minutes, so I'm just going to wrap this up here. Um, but yeah, I've got more things to say coming soon. I adopted a dog. I'm going to do a whole vlog about that, and maybe I'll do it tomorrow if I think of it. But it won't take me 3 weeks to do another vlog, and it won't take me a full week. I'll do another vlog soon. Yeah, that's it.